slipstream caught between realities, a secret museum of the esoteric, the private library of shadows, all taking place in a world forged from mystery and caught between logic and myth. You are entering Parareality.
Hello and welcome to the mysterious world of Parareality. This is a world that can only be found on the frequency between our reality and the reality that lies beyond it, just out of reach. A reality where everything unknown is a mystery. I'm Sandman, and I'm your host. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining me in the secret bunker again tonight for another episode of your favorite podcast, Parareality. Well, it's finally spooky season, everyone's favorite time of year. Well, if it's not, it should be anyway. And I've already got the yard decorated with the traditional haunted cemetery props. It's always a crowd pleaser in my neighborhood. I've got the usual tombstones put out there, but I've also got an iron fence that goes around the cemetery, a freshly dug grave, a skeleton and a zombie popping up from out of the ground, and a dead body hanging from the tree. And to top it all off, I've got a hearse. Can't have a cemetery without a hearse, right? And no, it's not a real hearse, but that's only because I can't afford a real hearse. I don't think Mrs. Sandman would let me buy one if I could. Anyway, I think that I should probably post some pictures of all this on my social media, and I'll probably do that later on. Let you guys see what my haunted cemetery looks like. I think that's a good idea. I've never done that before. I don't know why I haven't thought about that until now, but I need to do that. Anyway, I digress. So tonight is a special night for me personally because it also happens to be the 10th wedding anniversary of me and Mrs. Sandman. So while you're listening to this podcast, we're out celebrating our anniversary in style. There's no way that I could do what I do without her. And that goes both personally and professionally. It goes way beyond this little podcast of mine. Miss Sandman has always been my rock. She's my backbone and my most loyal supporter all the way back from the very beginning. Even when this podcast was much bigger than it is now and seemed to take over everything that I was doing, she supported me. She supported me even when she was sick and tired of all the effort that I was putting into podcasting. She supported me through not one, but 2 trips through college, a career change, multiple job changes within that career as well. She's always been by my side through the good times and the bad, and I couldn't dream up a more perfect partner for me to go through my life with. So, to my wife, Mrs. Sandman, I love you more than I can possibly express. Happy anniversary, my love. And with that gushiness being out of the way, tonight is the first of 2. Man, my chair is squeaking awfully bad tonight. I got to get that fixed. I need a new chair. I think that's what I'm going to do for next year is get a new chair. This is a good chair, but man, it squeaks so much. I don't know if you guys can hear it or not, but every time I move, it's like, okay. Anyway, tonight is the first of 2 Halloween specials this month. In the first one tonight, we're diving into 5 top secret haunted locations here in the place that I call home, Nashville, Tennessee. From ghostly apparitions to chilling legends, get ready to uncover the spine-tingling stories lurking in Music City. So grab your flashlights and let's embark on this haunted journey together. And as always, to learn more, you'll have to turn on, tune in, and find out right after this. Hey guys, are you a Star Wars fan? Have you ever wanted to own your own lightsaber but found they were just too expensive or the affordable ones were too cheap of a quality? Well, I've got the solution for you. Saber Masters is the perfect blend of affordability and quality.
I actually own a couple of these lightsabers, and I can testify as to just how good they really are. The hilts are made from high-grade aircraft aluminum and include a polycarbonate blade with infinite color choices for you to choose from, giving you the perfect accessory to your Jedi or Sith cosplay. You also get 16 sound fonts and 3 volume levels. Have the ultimate saber duel with flash on clash, blaster sound, lock-up loop, and many more sound effects. Your lightsaber will come with a free 1-year warranty and 3-day quick shipping. Whether you're a Padawan learner picking up your first saber or a Jedi Master expanding your collection, each Saber Master is a masterful recreation of the real deal. With Saber Masters, you're not only just buying a piece of merchandise, you're claiming a slice of the Star Wars universe for yourself. Order yours today by going to sabermasters.com and using the code SEAN21196 for $10 off your first order. Once again, that's SEAN21196. Sean is spelled S-E-A-N. That's S-E-A-N 21196 for $10 off of your first order. Or you can go to my website, parareality.com, click on the Partnerships tab, and complete your order from there. But don't forget to use the code SEAN21196 for $10 off your first order. That code, once again, is SEAN21196 for $10 off your first order. All right, it's time for some fan mail. I haven't done a fan mail segment in a while, so and it's one of my favorite things to do. Just haven't taken the time out to do it. So I wanted to take a moment and bring that back. And I have a mail here from Stephen C. And Stephen C. says, I can honestly say that Parareality is one of only a small handful of shows that doesn't just cover the same old predictable subjects. Sandman doesn't have to use bad language to express himself, gives a balanced and honest opinion on subjects, and lastly, he has a really chilled style. Thanks for everything. Well, Stephen C., thank you so very much for those kind words. I really appreciate it. You know, I do kind of pride myself in not covering just the same old things over and over again. It seems like everybody else is covering. I try to do things that not only interest me, but I think that maybe most people don't really have a finger pointed at, and maybe you guys that are listening out there maybe don't really know anything about it or have never heard about it. So I'd like to think that I do a pretty good job at that, and this is just reassuring me that I apparently that I do. So I really appreciate that, and I always have described myself as an open-minded skeptic, and by that I mean just because I'm talking about something, whatever particular topic it may be, doesn't necessarily mean that I myself believe in whatever it is that I'm talking about, but it's something that interests me. And, I do my research and I go into it with a little bit of a skeptical, eye, but yet an open mind at the same time. And sometimes there's more than one occasion I have gone into researching something with, one opinion. And as I do my research, I find that my opinion slowly changes. And so I think, that is another thing that maybe sets me apart a little bit from other podcasters that do topics like this, because I'm not going into anything with an agenda. I don't have the mindset of, okay, I believe in this certain thing and my job is to persuade you, the listener, to believe it as I do. Just because I believe something or don't believe something doesn't mean that I want you to feel the same way. I present the evidence to you from my research as unbiased as I possibly can, and I let you make up your own mind. and you can believe me or not. And, I've had people, over the years that have emailed me and gotten in contact with me and said, you're totally and completely 100% wrong, and that's fine. And I've had people who say, you're spot on, and that's great. And, I've also had plenty of people who say that I suck, but I've also had my share of people like you, Stephen C., who say, hey, I love your show and I like what you do. And thank you. Thank you very much. And touching on your thing about bad language, every once in a while I do drop the occasional F-bomb or something like that. I try to keep it kid-friendly as I possibly can, but every once in a while, especially when I get like riled up about something, I'll let a bad word or something like that come out. But I try to maintain as much of professionalism as what I possibly can. So thanks, Stephen, for recognizing that as well. And I also want to take a moment to welcome some new listeners to the podcast. We have another podcast that started listening to me, the Swerve Podcast. Thank you guys over at the Swerve for listening. New listener Karen W. Wow, my computer monitor just, there we go. Things happen. The Swerve Podcast is new. Karen Wilson is new. Vanessa Kelly and Bigfoot Blue, and that's Blue is spelled BLEW, whatever floats your boat, man. So thank you, Swerve Podcast, Karen, Vanessa, and Bigfoot Blue. You guys are now part of the Para-Reality family, so consider yourselves to be sand fans. So be sure to visit parareality.com every so often to catch up on the latest episode, listen to back episodes in the podcast archives, get your paranormal news, and do some shopping in the merch store. And who knows, guys, if you look deep enough in the website, there just might be a surprise waiting for you somewhere. And speaking of surprises, finally, I want to give out a special congratulations to the aforementioned Stephen C. and to Melanie G. for becoming the latest members of the Secret Bunker. Now, if you don't know what that is, then you're just going to have to do some investigating on your own and find out for yourself. Membership into the Secret Bunker is open to anyone that's listening to this podcast, but you've got to find out the secret of getting in all by yourself. You just have to know what you're looking for. You have to pay attention to a lot of stuff, maybe some secret stuff. Maybe you need to listen more deeply to this podcast. So good luck, everybody. Para-Reality is a proud member of the Evergreen Podcast Network. For more information or to check out other shows on the network, please visit evergreenpodcast.com.
Broadcast from a secret bunker somewhere outside of Nashville, Tennessee. This is the award-winning podcast, Para-Reality.
Well, it's spooky season again, filled with ghosts, hauntings, and stories of spirits from days gone by. Nashville is right in the mix, boasting its own share of ghostly tales, with a rich history as a bustling city where fortunes were made and lost, and a backdrop of wartime struggles during some of the Civil War's fiercest battles. There's no shortage of ghostly encounters here in this city. Nashville has been a tourist destination for probably the last 10 years or so, and is known as the home of country music and a popular, probably the most popular destination in the United States for bridal showers. But what most people don't know is that there's a little bit of a dark history to Nashville, one that extends beyond its Civil War history. There's plenty of haunted locations in and around Nashville, and some of the more popular ones are the Bell Witch Cave, the Ryman Auditorium, and Opryland, just to name a few. But there are several other haunted places that aren't well known to the tourist. These places are known only to the locals and the hardcore paranormal investigators. And tonight, I'm going to be telling you about 5 of them. And we're going to start with going into a little bit of a history lesson about each location. And then I'll tell you about the haunted side of it. Now, I want to tell you, just prepare yourself here for this, okay? When it comes to these 5 locations, the hauntings or the mysteries that surround them can be pretty gruesome, and or at least what led to the supposed hauntings can be pretty gruesome. But there's not a lot known about the hauntings. It's very because there hasn't been that much research into it, right? So there's very little information that I can give you about the haunting. So if you're wanting something that's like uber detailed and gives you everything right down to the little nth degree, you're not going to find that here, because it's hard to get info on these locations. And I was telling a friend of mine just the other day about he was asking me what my latest podcast was going to be on. And I was telling him what it was. And he was like, okay, so you've been to these 5 places. And I'm like, no, not all of them. He's like, what do you mean? How can you do a podcast about 5 haunted locations that you've never been to? Well, I have been to 3 of the 5. Now, have I done paranormal investigating in those 3 locations? No, I have not done paranormal investigating in those 3 locations, because it's hard to get permission to do that. But have I been through them? Have I looked through them? Have I done some what I call guerrilla style investigating? Yeah, but I've never done anything quote unquote official, as I use my air quotes that you can't see. So, while I haven't been to all of them, I do know of them, and I do know of their stories. And that's what I'm going to tell you tonight. And we're going to start off with the Tennessee State Capitol. And yes, this is was one of the ones that I have been to. The Tennessee State Capitol serves as the heart of the state's government. It houses both the Tennessee General Assembly and the office of the governor. This historic building was recognized as a National Historic Landmark all the way back in 1971, and has an interesting past, because it was once the location of the city's first Roman Catholic cathedral. And if you could see it, you can totally believe it. It's a sight to behold. The construction on the Capitol building started all the way back in 1845, and it wrapped up in 1859. So it took a total of 14 years. It was designed by back then well-known architect William Strickland, and today it stands out as one of the finest examples of Greek Revival architecture in Nashville. This is actually one of the first times wrought iron was used to strengthen a building. The walls, both inside and out, were made from limestone that was sourced about a mile from the location and skillfully shaped by, let's just say, people who weren't there on a voluntary basis. And interestingly, the project also involved both, let's just call it like it is, slaves and prisoners. So, they used a lot of free labor to build this place. And the people who were slaves worked as stonemasons, and the people who were prisoners were tasked with putting the wrought iron, they were putting in the wrought iron columns. Now, the Capitol grounds feature a variety of memorials, including those honoring U.S. presidents like Andrew Jackson and Andrew Johnson. There are also significant monuments like the Memorial to Africans, which pays tribute to the countless individuals who were forcibly brought to the New World during the slave trade. Additionally, the Tennessee Holocaust Commission Memorial stands as a solemn reminder of the victims of the genocide that occurred during World War II. There are also no less than 4 different hauntings that occur at the Tennessee State Capitol building. At least one of them involves more than one spirit. So let's take a look at each of them. First, we have the eternal Strickland-Morgan feud. Architect William Strickland, the mastermind behind the Greek Revival design of the Capitol, was the first person to be laid to rest inside the Capitol. I know that's a little weird, but he's buried there. Even though he died in 1854, before the building was officially dedicated, he made it clear where he wanted to be buried. So, keeping his wishes in mind, you can find his grave tucked away in the northeast corner of the Capitol. Samuel D. Morgan, who was the second person to be interred there, became part of the southeast corner of the Capitol back in 1880. Now, during construction of the building, he served as the chairman of the Capitol Commission, collaborating with Strickland to oversee the project. However, the two were constantly at odds, bickering over cost and expenses and stuff like that. And there is a legend that says that their rivalry didn't end with their deaths, as they were laid to rest close enough to each other, and their disagreements has carried on even in the afterlife. Apparently, these two men hated each other to their very core, and they can be heard at night shouting. Like one of the famous tales from the Capitol involves a loud argument between Morgan and Strickland, and it usually kicks off sometime around 9 o'clock at night. And those who have heard it claim that their shouting is so intense that you can hear the bickering from even outside the building. So just imagine how frustrating it has to be to deal with your rival even after you passed on and you're just yelling and shouting. I don't know why it starts at 9 p.m. Now, I've been hanging around. I've been through the Capitol a little bit during the day, and I've been around it at night. I've never been there like right exactly at 9 p.m., but I've been there after 9 p.m. I've never heard anything, but then again, it's a little difficult, especially with this day and age with everything. It's really difficult to go to the state capitol and just like walk around outside it at night. You know, you just can't do that. So I've never heard anything there, though I've been there, done a little guerrilla investigating, but I've never heard anything. But that doesn't make it not true. So second, we have the ghost of an unknown antebellum woman. Employees at the state capitol have claimed to spot a woman in an elegant antebellum-style dress, casually just walking around the place. Now, they think that she might be Rachel Jackson, the wife of Andrew Jackson, who was the 7th president of the United States. But what's the deal with her ghost showing up at the Capitol? You see, she actually died at the Hermitage, which was the plantation that she and President Jackson owned. And she's also buried there. So it seems more likely that her spirit is lingering around the Hermitage somewhere instead of at the Capitol building. I don't know why her ghost would be at the Capitol building. I don't really think that she has any reason to be there. And I don't know why it's thought that the ghost that's there is that of Rachel Jackson. But no matter who this elegantly dressed lady might be, to me, the thing that's clear is that it's definitely not Rachel Jackson. But we don't know who it is. And next, there's the supposed ghost of former U.S. President James K. Polk. It's rumored that the 11th President of the United States has a ghostly presence at the Capitol grounds. Numerous reports describe a figure in a dark suit who can be spotted kneeling by the tomb of James and Sarah Polk. Strangely, as you approach it, this mysterious man appears to fade away, gradually just vanishing into thin air. And people who have seen it, they say, well, it's James K. Polk gazing at his own grave. And interestingly, both he and his wife's remains have been relocated 3 times, and there might be another move coming up. I don't know. So could all this constant shifting of their final resting spot be the reason behind the ghostly sighting? I don't know. It seems reasonable to me, if their graves keep getting disturbed, that there would be something that would be happening as far as a ghost or spirit type presence there. Finally, there's the ghost of the Capitol cupola. At the peak of the Capitol, there's a big glass dome where the United States flag is proudly flapping in the breeze there. But if we rewind all the way back to 1862, things looked a little different because it was the Confederate flag that was flapping in the breeze instead. In the midst of the American Civil War from 1861 to 1865, Union forces took control of Nashville after the forts that safeguarded the Tennessee and the Cumberland rivers were captured. And once they arrived in Nashville, their first stop was at the Capitol building, where they intended to take down the Confederate flag and hoist up Old Glory in its place. However, the mission hit a little bit of a snag because they actually found a rebel soldier who was armed and stationed at the top of the spiral staircase in the cupola, and he was there guarding the Confederate flag. But before he had a chance to even utter a single word, he was shot dead and his body tumbled down the stairs. Now you jump ahead to the 21st century, and a renovation crew working on the building claimed to have seen a shadowy figure lurking at the top of the staircase in the cupola. Now, they couldn't identify this ghostly presence, but it definitely made them feel uneasy, like it was warning them that they needed to get out of there. Some workers even said they felt a force pushing them away, along with hearing the stern command, "Don't touch the furniture." Now, strangely enough, that same furniture later returned to its original spot all on its own. Nobody put it there, at least nobody claimed to. Now, luckily, it turns out this isn't some malevolent spirit. It's just a soldier stuck in his own never-ending civil war. So that does it for the ghosts of the state capitol. Next, we're going to move on to the Hermitage Hotel. And yes, I have been into the Hermitage Hotel. I have not investigated it, but I have been there. I've been there more than once, never seen or heard anything, but I was not in the area that is said to be haunted either. And you'll understand why as I explain this to you. So the Hermitage Hotel, designed by the renowned architect James Carpenter, who trained in Paris. This thing stood as a beacon of luxury in downtown Nashville since 1910. Now, thanks to the Board of Trade, the community came together to raise, at that time, a whopping sum of money to build what would become known as Nashville's first $1 million hotel, because that's how much they raised. Once it was up and running, visitors could enjoy all the fancy features of the era, like running ice water and telephones right in their rooms, making their stay feel really super luxurious. The lobby columns and floors are made from Tennessee and Carrara marble, and it gives the place a luxurious vibe, and it's beautiful in there. With its grand arches and its beautiful stained glass skylights, the Hermitage Hotel really established itself as the priciest spot to stay in the city. And as a matter of fact, anybody of any, let's just say, social status, anybody that has any wealth, a lot of it's Music City, USA here, right? So we get a lot of concerts that come through here. A lot of the musicians stay at the Hermitage Hotel because it's just, that's where you want to stay, right? and guests staying at this lavish hotel will confirm that there are in fact weird occurrences, but these seem mostly to be due to a residual type energy lingering in the hotel from all the people who've stayed throughout the decades rather than actual spirits, right? So the room that's known for having the highest level of paranormal activity is room 912. And that's why I have not experienced anything, because I am a regular guy and I am not paying the extravagant amount of money that it takes to stay there just so I can investigate room 912. I've been walking through the halls where room 912 are very slowly with some equipment and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I did not capture anything, but I wasn't expecting to. So like I said, room 912 is known for having the highest level of paranormal activity. So guests who stay there have reported being awoken from their sleep by an eerie sound of a baby crying in the wee hours of the morning. Now, there's a local story that says a baby fell out of this room's window completely by accident, but after digging through old newspapers from that time and after doing some research online, finding some old newspapers from that time, I couldn't find any reports about an incident, but that doesn't mean that it's not true. To be fair, hotel room deaths don't always make it to the media, especially when there's no foul play involved. Hotel owners definitely don't want their guests discovering that they're, resting or sleeping in a room where a body was just recently found, or gazing out a window where a tragic incident occurred, like where somebody jumped or fell out. And that kind of news, as you can expect, can really hurt a hotel's reputation. So while I'm not completely disregarding this story, I can't confirm if it's true or not. Now, like I said, deaths in a hotel don't always make the news, especially when there's no foul play involved. I will recount a personal story of mine. Whenever I first moved to Nashville, I worked for Gaylord Opryland Resort and Convention Center. Now, Gaylord Opryland Resort and Convention Center is a huge, huge hotel, and it's a city within a city. I mean, it's that damn big. I was the supervisor for the medical services department. We had to have our own medical staff there for the employees and for the guests. And we didn't just own the Resort and Convention Center. There was also the General Jackson showboat, the paddle wheel boat. We owned that. We owned the Ryman Auditorium and the Grand Ole Opry, which are two separate locations. And we also owned a hotel across the street, which was, I can't even remember, but it was like a chain hotel or whatever. But we owned that. And I got calls to that hotel across the street, as well as in the resort, Gaylord Opryland Resort proper, on more than one occasion where people had killed themselves or had died in their sleep. So, the hotel kept that very, very hush, did not want anybody reporting anything like that out into the public because, damages the reputation, and no one, normal people don't want to go sleep in a room where someone took an overdose of pill and died. There was a murder one time in Opryland, and that really freaked everybody out. And they tried to keep the room a secret. Because this was a murder, so it made the news, right? And they tried to keep the room a secret. This was before I started working. They tried to keep the room a secret so people wouldn't know. I don't know how successful they were at that. But anyway, that's just kind of off topic. But yeah, hotel owners definitely don't want people to know that there's been a death there. So it doesn't surprise me, that I couldn't find anything about it. But that doesn't mean you can disregard the story. It just means I can't confirm whether it's true or not. So we definitely need to think about how old the hotel is, though, when we talk about the Hermitage Hotel. It'd be pretty naive to assume that in its over century-long history that no one has ever passed away or had some kind of, bad thing or some kind of mishap happen there, right? Another frequently reported apparition is that of a woman dressed in white. Now, this is thought to be one of the Edwardian ladies who stayed at the Hermitage Hotel in the 1910s. This ghostly figure is often held responsible for the odd occurrences happening at the hotel. So when things happen like doors swing open by themselves, or elevators start acting up, or drinks mysteriously fly off of a bar, people usually think that it's this playful lady making her presence felt. Visitors there have claimed to witness the big fancy mirror in the hotel lobby suddenly crack right before their eyes, but when they get the staff to come over to check it out, to everyone's surprise, the crack has vanished. It's not there. Now, the Hermitage Hotel isn't just about its eerie ghost stories. It's also a real feast for your eyes. It's got stunning custom chandeliers hanging from the ceilings and gorgeous marble details throughout. This place is a showcase level of luxury that's hard to come by these days, and it's also haunted as hell. Our third place, and this is one of the two that I haven't visited. As a matter of fact, this place and the next place I have not visited. I know where they're at, but I have not been inside. Location number 3 is the Downtown Presbyterian Church. One of the notable ghostly landmarks in Nashville, designed by architect William Strickland, yep, that William Strickland, is the cherished church located in the heart of downtown. This church holds a special place in history as the home church of General and President Andrew Jackson. The current building was constructed in 1851 in the Egyptian Revival style, and it predates the Civil War. It's interesting to note here that General Jackson received a ceremonial sword on the church steps after the War of 1812, following the destruction of the original structure by fire. The church is tucked away among a cluster of sleek glass skyscrapers, showcasing a beautiful blend of Nashville's historic charm and modern architecture. It boasts ample space, accommodating somewhere around 400 people. But there's more than meets the eye at this historic place of worship. Throughout the Civil War, as fierce battles unfolded nearby, this church played a crucial role by serving as one of the many hospitals for the Union soldiers during the military occupation of Nashville. The conflict was particularly brutal, especially in Tennessee. Prior to 1860, the people of Tennessee weren't exactly eager to become part of the Confederacy, but in 1861, they wound up being the 11th and last state to join the cause anyway. The lush farmland and beautiful scenery around that place took a hit from the destruction, and Nashville became a key location for Confederate supplies. Turning the church into a makeshift hospital was essential to care for the countless injured and fallen soldiers, which left a lingering sense of eerie happenings in the area. Today, the Downtown Presbyterian Church remains an active place for worship and a well-loved spot in the city, yet there are tales of ghostly figures wandering the grounds. A lot of people think that the spirits of Confederate and Union soldiers who lost their lives are still lingering, unable to find peace after their passing. Given the significant pain and loss experienced within its walls, it's no surprise that tales of hauntings have emerged from this church. Visitors often report hearing strange sounds and catching glimpses of shadowy figures, adding an eerie charm to this historic site. Those who've heard the sounds in the church after hours say that it sounds like footsteps and groans and other creepy type noises. And even during the day, there are stories of weird feelings emanating from the church. But many people just brush it off like, it's nothing. This is a church. They're not aware of the place's haunted past. They don't really know about all the death that occurred there. And then you get a weird feeling, and they're like, it's just because I'm in an old church. And a lot of the spooky happenings take place in the cemetery outside the church, though. People around the cemetery say that some of the souls buried there haven't really moved on and can still be seen wandering the grounds there. So you've got stories of creepy feelings, suppression type feelings, hearing footsteps, groans, all kind of creepy noises, seeing shadow figures darting from one place to the other, and seeing ghosts in the cemetery. So it's no surprise that this place is haunted, given all the death that it's seen, especially because, it did serve as a hospital. And, let's face it, churches are notorious for being associated with death because there's cemeteries in a lot of churches, especially the older ones, right? So it's not uncommon to have haunted cemeteries that are attached to churches. But what is uncommon is to have a church serve as a hospital during a war and to see so much death within its own walls. Now, you can imagine there was a lot more that happened there before. People didn't just go there, I got shot, let me go there and get treated. People didn't just, die there. There was a lot of bad stuff that happened there because of the brutality of medicine that was going on at the time. So there were people who had their limbs literally hacked off with a saw while they were kind of conscious, and then got septic from the wound that was created and then died a horrible, agonizing death. There are people who were deemed unsavable and died horrible, agonizing deaths. So it wasn't just, Teddy got shot and, now he's dead. He died, in the hospital. It's bad stuff, the way that a lot of those soldiers died. And you can imagine what kind of residual energy that leaves in a place, especially when it's full of people dying like that. So it's no wonder that that church is haunted. And speaking of haunted churches, that leads us to the number 4 spot, which is also another church. It's the St. Mary's of the Seven Sorrows Catholic Church. This church was constructed between 1844 and 1847 and currently holds the title of the oldest standing Catholic church in the state of Tennessee. Adolphus Hyman, a German immigrant, was the original architect, while Bishop Richard Pius Miles supervised the construction. Now, Miles was appointed as the first bishop of the Diocese of Nashville in 1837. This guy was born in 1791 and passed away on February the 21st, 1860, being laid to rest beneath St. Mary's of the Seven Sorrows. In 1926, and this is the reason I'm telling you this is because of this story here. In 1926, the church underwent a significant renovation by the firm Asmus and Clark, which seemingly stirred up some spirits as the staff and the clergy soon began reporting sightings of a ghostly priest. Now, you all know that if you've got an old location and it's got a ghost in it or a spirit in it, a lot of times nothing is going on with that spirit. It's just hanging out. It's not causing any problems. Everything is good. Then people come in, they buy up the place, and they're like, we're going to renovate it and modernize it and change this, that, and the other, and the spirits don't like it, and they start getting a little rowdy. Well, that seems to be what happened to the St. Mary's of the Seven Sorrows Catholic Church. The first reported appearance of this apparition was by a housekeeper in the 1930s. In 1937, Monsignor John Morgan encountered the ghost in a kind of unusual way, not as a visible figure, but through loud knockings at his door, which he was asleep, startled him awake. And after opening the door and finding out that no one was there, he went back to his bed, went back to sleep, only to be awoken again by knocking that seemed to come from the headboard of his bed. Now, speculation surrounds the identity of the ghostly figure. Some believe it's to be a priest who died during the church's construction, while many others think that it may be linked to the 300 men who perished within its walls when the church served as a hospital during the Civil War, including a Confederate Catholic chaplain who was shot there, or who was shot and brought there. There's also a theory that it is, of course, none other than Richard P.S. Miles himself. Now, to me, Miles is the strongest candidate, having overseen the church's construction and likely being present during the Civil War. Additionally, stories may have become intertwined over time, right? And so the most compelling evidence for his identity is that he's definitely buried in the church, right? So that gives me a strong case anyway, that makes a strong case for me, should I say, that it is Bishop Miles who is haunting the church, and not a random Catholic priest or Civil War soldier. Now, granted, it was a Civil War hospital. We just talked about what happened in Civil War hospitals. So could it be, a soldier, a Confederate soldier? Well, it absolutely could be, but I think Miles is the strongest candidate. Now, there's a little bit of a debate regarding the discovery of the remains of Bishop Miles. Some people claim that they were uncovered during the 1926 renovations, which could explain his subsequent sightings, while other people say it wasn't until 1969 that his remains were found in the church basement. So regardless of the true story, it does appear that something during the Great Depression sparked the ghostly presence, with sightings reported all the way up until 1972, which was the year Bishop Richard Miles' remains were interred in a small chapel in the northwest corner of St. Mary's. In 1972, when Bishop Miles' remains were exhumed and moved to this new tomb, they were found to be incorrupt, which sparked discussions about his potential canonization and sainthood. Now, this little intriguing detail has only fueled the fascination of paranormal investigators, who often venture out there at night in hopes of capturing images of a mysterious figure reportedly seen in an upstairs window. The combination of history, haunting tales, and the possibility of a saintly presence make this site a hot spot for those intrigued by the supernatural. Yet, it is little known to the tourist. It's only those hardcore paranormal investigators who know about this place. And now you do too. But you notice I'm not giving you addresses of these places. If you really want to find them out, you can, right? It's not that hard. I'm giving you the names. I'm not giving you locations, but it's not going to be that hard to find out. So the St. Mary's has such out of those that I've talked about so far, St. Mary's to me has just, I think, the most interesting tale around it as to what is going on there, who could be causing it. I mean, obviously the Bishop Miles did not get canonized as far as I can tell. And when we say that his remains were incorrupt, that means that there was like no decay. He wasn't, a bag of bones. And usually in the Catholic faith, whenever you dig a body up and it's found to be incorrupt, there's, strong evidence that, oh my God, they're saying that this guy is, the Holy of Holies. He's holier than thou type deal. And there was something special about him. So I don't know if that is true, that his remains were incorrupt or not. I have no idea. But just given the fact that he was buried there and that we had the renovation going on. His remains were disturbed. It's a pretty good bet to me that he is the one that's causing these hauntings. And finally, last but not least, we come to probably what is my favorite spot of all 5 of these, Printer's Alley. So, Printer's Alley, I've been there many times. It used to be a place where only the locals would go. But in recent years, Printer's Alley has become, I'm not going to say a tourist hotspot, but it's become more tourist friendly, and there's more tourists that are going there. Printer's Alley used to have more than one spot, but especially this place called the Bourbon Street Blues and Boogie Bar. That place, the decor hasn't changed in there since 1970 something, maybe even 1960 something. It's still the same carpet and the same, seats and everything, and the same tables. All the decor is very New Orleans, and the carpet is so old and worn down. It's like greasy and shit. Man, it's so nasty. You feel like you need a bath and a tetanus shot if you're going in there. But man, there is some great music there, and it used to be just, at Printer's Alley was just a local thing. But thanks to tourism, it's now a little bit more tourist friendly, and a lot of the clubs and restaurants and stuff that were in this little bitty alley, they're gone, and they've been replaced with tourist trap stuff. It's really sad, but I digress. So, Printer's Alley. Nashville's red light district thrived well into the 20th century, fueled by a rowdy male crowd, local law enforcement looking the other way, and the whiskey distilleries that kept the scene alive. The alley was alive with all sorts of shady dealings, and everybody knew it, including the cops. But every now and then, the local law enforcement would swoop in for a raid, but the consequences were just, a few fines and a slap on the hand here and there. And it wasn't a surprise that some of the police officers even confessed to getting in on the action themselves. Now, the Climax Saloon, which was a brothel in Printer's Alley, was run by the Dickel Company. Now, the Dickel Company was a distillery in the area. Now, this 3-story establishment that was the Climax Saloon featured a bar and a gambling area, and it created quite the lively atmosphere. And the prostitutes that were in the saloon, they'd often chill up on the 3rd floor where they had a fake wall that they could duck behind in case that there was a raid or anything like that went on. It was all part of the Dickel Company's plan to boost their whiskey sales by setting up saloons like this. Can you believe that? I mean, what a good way to set up a whiskey sales. Offer some prostitutes and some sex and gambling, man. A lot of dudes are going to be in on that. Now, the businesses that thrived on vice like this started to fade away as church groups pushed for the district to shut down and strict politicians moved in to tackle the corruption. Prohibition also hit the Printer's Alley spots hard, but that didn't mean people stopped drinking. Right? We all know that people didn't stop drinking just because Prohibition was going on. Instead, it just went underground, leading to the rise of a new kind of bar, the speakeasy. Printer's Alley is still holding on to its vibrant charm to this day, packed with a bunch of pubs and clubs that are perfect for a good time. So if you're in downtown Nashville, make sure to check out this historic spot, especially if you're curious about one of the city's most famous haunted places. Now, to really understand the spooky stories of Printer's Alley, we need to take a step back and imagine what the place was like in the 19th century. This alley earned its name because it was packed with publishing houses, newspapers, and printing shops, all crammed into just 2 short little blocks. However, it wasn't just a hub of hard work. There was plenty of fun to be had there as well, like at the Climax Saloon. During the day, the place was alive with like newsboys and fashionable Victorian ladies, but once the sun went down, it turned into the infamous men's quarter, which was a spot where no respectable woman would dare to venture. It was nestled among the bustling publishing houses lining the alley, and there were some equally popular brothels, one of which was the notorious aforementioned Climax Saloon. Now, Printer's Alley at night was a wild place where all sorts of shady characters, from murderers to fetish enthusiasts and sex workers, found their comfort zone. It was a haven for unchecked vices, allowing local guys to unwind and indulge. And amidst the chaos, you could catch starving artists strumming their guitars, burlesque dancers taunting their moves out there, flaunting themselves, and even some of the most horrific crimes being carried out right under the neon lights that was in Printer's Alley. And when it comes to the spooky happenings around here, 2 spirits are particularly well known for wandering the streets, both linked to tragic events that occurred in one of the lively and somewhat wild buildings of Printer's Alley. The first is the spirit of Ice Johnson. Among the many dingy dive bars lining the streets, the Southern Turf was a breath of fresh air with its classy vibe. This 4-story establishment was always buzzing with patrons, dishing out drinks like they were about to disappear, man. I mean, they were just, it was flowing like water, right? And even offering takeout booze for those who needed their booze on the go. The decor was said to be impressive, and it featured things like bronze sculptures, beautiful artwork, had a big, massive, sturdy wooden furniture, and it even had something which back then was very rare, electric fans to keep things cool. Now, for years, the Southern Turf building thrived under the management of Ice Johnson. Now, he lived on the 3rd floor of the Southern Turf. However, everything took a turn for the worse in 1914 when Prohibition hit, leading to the closure of the popular spot for gambling, drinking, and lodging. In a moment of despair, Johnson said that he would rather die than abandon his beloved home. His love for the Southern Turf ran so deep that he chose to end his life there in 1916 rather than face eviction amid the rising tide of Prohibition in Tennessee. While Nashville's saloon scene was thriving, powerful church groups were gaining traction in the temperance movement, which actually started in Tennessee before it became a national issue. The local paper, the Tennessean, was also known to support the push for Prohibition, adding to the tension of the time. And not long after Ice took his life, people started claiming that they spotted his ghostly figure on the 3rd floor window. Remember, the 3rd floor was where he called home. So the tale of the ghost of Ice Johnson quickly became a local legend, and even when the old deserted building was revamped and turned into the Tennessee Publishing Company, the new workers insisted that the spirit of Ice Johnson was still around. His ghostly presence began to spook the employees with strange occurrences like objects mysteriously shifting from their desk and flying around. Johnson's full apparition showed up to various staff members, and things were basically around their chaos with the workers because the ghost of, the spirit, should I say, of Ice Johnson was causing them such chaos. As people wander through Printer's Alley, they can't help but talk about a mysterious, shadowy figure that they see zipping between windows of the third floor of the now defunct Tennessee Publishing Company / Old Southern Turf building. This eerie silhouette moves so quickly that it feels, well, almost supernatural and definitely not something you'd expect from a regular person. The second spirit, and probably the most famous spirit of Printer's Alley, is the spirit of Skull Schulman. Now you jump ahead to 1948, and you'll find that David Skull Schulman bought the basement of the Southern Turf building and transformed it into his renowned Rainbow Room. When Skull kicked off his business, he claimed that Johnson's ghost was playing tricks on him, and each night, just as he was about to shut down the club, the spirit would rattle chains and tables and give him a scare. However, this spooky activity didn't deter Skull at all, and he kept running his club for a solid 50 years. Locals often talk about Skull as a quirky and cheerful character known for his unique style. He loved to wear flashy jackets and vibrant patchwork suits that really made him stand out. And he had a couple of dogs, poodles, which he adored, and he dyed them, yes, he dyed his poodles, bright red and took them for walks on leashes adorned with rhinestones. And one of the poodles even came from none other than the king himself, Elvis Presley. Now, the Rainbow Room turned into the ultimate hangout, and Skull earned the title of Mayor of Printer's Alley. His joint attracted big-name musicians like the aforementioned Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, and Bob Dylan. Even Paul McCartney dropped by to write some tunes when he settled in Nashville back in 1974. The vibe was electric, filled with exotic dancers and performers, all thanks to Skull's laid-back attitude and charm. People couldn't help but admire Skull, which definitely contributed to the spot's skyrocketing popularity. Skull was a very popular and beloved person. Unfortunately, Skull was also known to carry around large amounts of cash, and that was a habit that led to his tragic death. Back in 1998, after 5 decades of managing the Rainbow Room, Skull found himself in a dangerous situation when 2 armed homeless guys stormed into the club. They held him at knife point, demanding money, but when he stood his ground and refused to give in, one of them brutally attacked him and slashed his throat multiple times and then smashed a bottle over Skull's head. So Skull, who was 80 years old at the time that this happened, was discovered by a cigarette vendor back when they still had those things. Now, he was struggling to breathe and had his hands clutched around his throat. The vendor quickly called 911, where he was taken to the hospital, but sadly, he didn't make it through the night. Now, when the news hit Nashville, it hit Nashville hard, and it left the community in a little bit of a shock. Country music stars like Tanya Tucker hurried to be by his side before he died, and his close friend, Willie Nelson, even appeared on America's Most Wanted to aid in tracking down the culprits behind this tragic event. Now, it seems like Skull is still as upbeat as always and is hanging out in his Rainbow Room even after he's passed on. As you might have already figured out, his spirit's now roaming around Printer's Alley. People spotted him taking his dogs for a stroll only to disappear into thin air. Some people even claim that they've seen him and one of his poodles stroll right through the front door of the Rainbow Room. Now, following his passing, the bustling business was quickly left to decay, and it sat vacant for years up until 2016 when it finally got a makeover and opened its doors again. Now, I moved up here in October of 2002, and I remember my girlfriend at the time telling me about Skull's Rainbow Room and about how beloved Skull was, and we even went by there several times, trying to look in the dusty windows and everything, trying to see what we could see in the old Rainbow Room. And when they finally decided that they were going to renovate this place and open it back up in 2016, it took a couple of years, I think, for them to actually get it, back up and running again where it could be safe. There was a lot of stuff that had to happen because it sat vacant for a long time, right? Excuse me, I had a little cough there. Interestingly, the workers during the renovations noted that despite the sweltering 90-degree heat outside and the absence of air conditioning in the building, the inside felt eerily cold, almost like Skull's ghost was keeping an eye on the whole process. Now, interestingly enough, the new place is called Skull's Rainbow Room and is an extremely popular place for fine dining, jazz music, and sexy burlesque shows on the weekends. Guests continue to report cold spots and seeing Skull walking through the doors with his poodle to this very day. Now, I've been there myself a few times, and while I haven't experienced anything paranormal yet, I have eaten some of the great food there and watched some of the beautiful and sexy women entertain the crowd by taking their clothes off in a very respectful manner. And Skull's Rainbow Room has a very speakeasy vibe to it and is, let me tell you, it's popular. I mean, you have to make reservations there weeks out in advance. And not a lot of the tourists that are going to Skull's Rainbow Room are aware of the hauntings that happen there. They just go there because, hey, this is a quote-unquote speakeasy, and it's got really good food, and you can see some titties, It's very unique, even for Nashville. It's a very unique restaurant. But if you're ever in the area and you want some good food, have some good drinks if you're a drinker, and listen to some good jazz music if you're into that, or on the weekends, starting at 11 p.m., see some titties, then Skull's Rainbow Room is for you. I know it's my kind of place. I love going to Skull's Rainbow Room. I haven't been there in a while. I may need to change that. So in conclusion here, in the hidden nooks and intriguing tales of Nashville's top 5 haunted spots, the echoes of history linger, and the supernatural seems to weave through the fabric of time. As we wrap up our exploration of these spooky yet significant locations, keep in mind that the ghosts of yesteryear serve as a reminder that history just isn't a bunch of dates and events. It's a vibrant force that continues to influence our lives today. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer in the paranormal, these haunted sites in Nashville provide a fascinating peek into the enigmas of our collective past and the magnetic pull of the unknown. As you step away from these haunted locales, take with you the tales, the myths, and the soft murmurs of the spirits that inhabit them, for they play a crucial role in Nashville's rich and ever-changing story. The blend of history and the supernatural creates a unique atmosphere that invites curiosity and wonder, making each visit an adventure into the past. So whether you're drawn by the thrill of the ghostly hauntings or simply the allure of history, Nashville's haunted places are sure to leave a lasting impression on your journey. Well, that about does it for tonight. Thank you for listening, everybody. But before I close it out, there are a couple of extra things that I want to talk to you about. A little something about me that you might not know is that I like to camp. I grew up going camping and fishing in southeast Alabama, and I used to do it all the time. After I got married, though, I found out that my wife doesn't really enjoy it so much. She appreciates the finer things in life, like a comfortable bed, air conditioning, and a hot shower. So as you can guess, we don't do a lot of camping. But all that changed whenever I found the getaway cabins. The getaway cabins are the best of both worlds. Think glamping. What you'll get with the getaway cabins is the equivalent of a tiny home. They're around 200 square feet, and they have everything you need for a comfortable stay in the woods. You'll have plenty of power, heat, and air conditioning, a stocked kitchen, a table, 1 or 2 very comfortable queen beds, and a bathroom with hot water. They also have a picnic table and fire pit, complete with everything you'll need to start a fire and do some outdoor open flame cooking. You can relax and unplug from the hustle and bustle of everyday life because there's no TV and there's usually no cell phone service because of the remote location. But don't worry, there's plenty to do because the cabins are usually located close to a state park, and they also have plenty of hiking trails. They're also pet friendly, so bring your pooch with you. My wife and I have stayed at the Getaway Cabins in Moss, Tennessee a couple of times, and we've had a great time while we were there. The Getaway Cabins are perfect for long weekends when you just need to unplug from it all. They have locations all over the country, so book your stay today. All you have to do is go to parareality.com and click on the Partnerships tab. There you'll find a link to click on and enjoy a $25 discount off your first stay. Be sure to check out their packages and discount rates for military and medical professionals as well. Once again, go to parareality.com and click on the Partnerships tab to find the link for $25 off of your first stay at the Getaway Cabins. For more information, go to getaway.house. That's GETAWAY.house. If you'd like to leave a comment about tonight's episode of Parareality, have an idea for a topic you'd like me to cover, or a story you'd like to tell, send me an email, sandman@parareality.com, or call the Secret Bunker at 615-692-1170 and leave me a message. Don't forget that by leaving me your message, you're giving me permission to play your comment back on the podcast. Also, don't forget to follow Parareality on social media. You can find the podcast on Facebook by looking for sandman.parareality, or you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram under the username @ParaRealRadio. You can also find Parareality on YouTube under the username Parareality1. That's Parareality with the number 1 out behind it. Parareality.com is the home of the podcast on the web, and it's also where you can find paranormal news from all around the world in the Paranews section. And you can listen to past episodes in the archives section, all for the price of absolutely nothing. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can buy yourself some swag in the official Parareality shop while you're there. You can also support the podcast for free by leaving me a 3-star or better review on whatever podcast app you're listening on. Your reviews help the podcast to grow and reach even more people, and I would appreciate it very much. I'd love to hear from you guys, so send me those emails. Thank you. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's episode of Parareality. My next episode is going to air on October 18th at 8 o'clock p.m. Central U.S. time, so make sure you tune in, and find out. I got a special guest in store for you that's going to talk about some really spooky things, and you are going to love it. Everyone, I hope that this podcast opens up your mind to new ways of thinking, expands your consciousness, and produces a change in the way you see the world. If you wish to change, you must lift the veil of ignorance that has been cast over your eyes. Only then will you see the true power of the universe. Hope you have a wonderful evening, a great weekend, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks on October 18th. Good night, everybody.
If you wish to change, you must first lift the veil of ignorance that has been cast over your eyes. Only then will you see the true power of the universe.
Hey, it's not over. Thanks for sticking around. I got something to tell you. Do you want to be a member of the Secret Sanctum? Well, if you do, there's only one way to do that. Somewhere on parareality.com is a link hidden in my website. And if you can find that link and click on it, you'll be granted access to the secret bunker, and you'll become a member of the Secret Sanctum. It's 100% free. It's not going to cost you anything. And once you become a member, you'll have access to some secret audio files and secret documents, some of which are exclusive only to Parareality and the members of the Secret Sanctum. You'll also get a free Parareality Secret Sanctum t-shirt. Just fill out the form and let me know what size you are, where you're located in your name, and I'll get that right out to you. So if you want to be a member of the Parareality Secret Sanctum and have access to the secret bunker, find the link.